What does it take to compete on the world stage? To go head-to-head with the best of the best? Excellence, agility, resilience, the willingness to keep on evolving. It takes courageous leadership to be bold and chart the course, to connect the dots, bringing stakeholders together, to overcome the hurdles we all face, and to deliver best practice. It's about business at the click of a button, delivering at the speed of the internet, connecting people, products, and places, strengthening our supply chains, faster and more cost-effective than ever. Since 1921, we've given voice and vision to the freight forwarding industry, navigating the tides of international trade, evolving ever more sophisticated supply chains, bridging local and global markets to move our economy forward. Welcome to our world. The Southern African Association of Freight Forwarders, architects of the supply chain for over a century.
To show you what is happening in the rail infrastructure, and specifically if I'm going to address it, and as the event unfolds, you will see we're very much going to look at the NATCOR line. And then also to what we've done this time, it's not just the people in the audience, we actually have done live streaming. That's why you will see the cameras, the lights, and then the professional people at the back to make sure that whatever we do here today is live stream and we can refer back to whatever we discussed today, and that we make sure that we build a library for the people to come after us. So I'm going to take you quickly through the program. Maria is going to do just a few words of welcome to us. She's our chairperson in SAAFF, and we serve under her leadership for the last 2 years very successfully. Then we're going to go to Jaap. He's quite a detailed person to tell you about the rail reform and what needs to be done. And then in the middle, we left you with Claude. I think you will enjoy his way that he looks at the economy and how he thinks we need to make sure that we're on the right path. And then we can have a short comfort break. And then we're going to come to the real nuts and bolts. And that is Brenda to show us with a team what are we doing in the NATCOR line and how can you take it forward. So I hope you enjoy the morning with us. I believe it's going to be insightful. It's going to help you to understand what are we busy building, because I honestly believe we only have 3 years in our country to drive reform. And if we don't do that, I don't want to predict that we can leave to Claude, but I think it's our timing now. So I'm going to hand over to Maria to say the welcome, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Anita. First of all, I'd like to welcome all our members here. I'm really pleased to see that the table's all full and that we are well represented. I see a number of other invited guests here that are not on the agenda. You're always welcome. I'm really delighted to see somebody from Agbas here as well, and anybody else that I haven't met. Thank you very much for making the time to be here. For the people online, thank you for joining us. I think this is very important. Before I say welcome to, can I say welcome to Brenda from the Container User Forum, Jaap van der Merwe, he's just a walking encyclopedia regarding the rail and Transnet, and always a great pleasure to have him here. And then Claude, always, sometimes quite scary when you listen to him. You don't have to read the news or listen to the news, but he does bring things into perspective, and I think he gives us a lot to think about. So thank you very much to the 3 guest speakers for making the time to be with us. I think UNITA says we've got 3 years, and I think where we are as a country, we've been through a lot from when we were at the height of volumes going through the ports, 2016, 2017, 2018, dealing with corruption, dealing with COVID, dealing with everything else that hit our country and hit our industry. So, yeah, we all survived, and the country survived. And despite everything, the country, the fundamentals are there. I think what's happening now with the Mlanga Commission and everything else, I think everything else is aligned, that we are truly standing at the threshold of good things in this country if we all work together and if we all put our heads together and we all commit to making this country great. If you look at the statistics, I think the volumes, the container volumes are back. I see there's been a nice increase going through the ports. The ports, all the ports except for Cape Town has improved their ranking on the World Bank survey that they did. And the one thing that I can say, I know what happened behind the scenes. And I know that the role that SAAFF played since 2020 in driving a lot of the changes. So I'm immensely proud to stand here today, and we don't always take the accolades. And the people don't always necessarily know the work that goes on behind the scenes. But a lot of the change that is happening is due to the work that SAAFF's done to start collecting data. Because once you show data and you show the facts, people sit up and they listen. And that was the start of what we started to do in SAAFF, is to say, how do we get our hands on the data? How do we report those data? Because that gives us the power to go and speak to the people to say, we have a problem here, we need to fix it. So I'm immensely proud, UNITA, you and your team. I think you've done a great job. People are acknowledging SAAFF, they're acknowledging the work that SAAFF is doing, not just amongst our members, because the members may not see the benefit, but trust me, you are benefiting from the change that happened because of the work that SAAFF has done. But the government and all the other entities in BUSA, NETLAC, they do acknowledge us, SARS, you look at CSIR and all those people, they all look up and they understand and they know that they can hold hands with us and work together. We are not here to boast. We are humble. We are here with a purpose to make sure that, first of all, the logistics network works, including rail, because it's still a concern that although the container volumes are up, the volumes on rail for containers is not there as yet. And we need to fix that, and we need to fix that very soon if we want to see real growth in this country. But thank you very much, everybody. As I say, it's a pleasure to be here, and enjoy the rest of the discussions. Thank you very much.
He's going to take us through all his slides. And as Maria said, hawking encyclopedia, yeah. Is she right?
Thank you. Am I audible? Yes. Morning, colleagues. I've been asked to talk about the national rail policy alignment, or the draft rail, the other way around, the draft national rail master plan alignment with national rail policy. I was the principal author of the rail policy, so you can shoot me for that. The policy will manifest eventually in a rail act. So there's currently a rail bill in draft, version how many times? So certain things, so we're working in good faith, if you like. The white paper is published now under the National Land Transport Act, so it's legislated in that sense. But the Rail Act will manifest these things clearly. So many things that you will see come from the policy. There were about 29 or so policy statements, if I recall. So I want to make the point before I go to the next slide. And I've got lots of slides, so you can have them and share them, because I did a detailed audit of the compliance between the National Rail Master Plan and the policy. So I'm going to talk about 5 or 6 slides, with 50 slides with all the actual clauses that you can go and read for your own. If we look at it from a jobs point of view, roughly the intermodal sector pushes 1.5 million people every day out of bed to go and work. rough number. Whereas if you look at the minerals, it's maybe 20, 30, 40,000 people every morning. So this is an enormously important sector for our country. If you look at it from a GDP point of view, Port of Durban, Gauteng corridor serves 50% of the GDP, 50% of the GDP. We have to make it work. So everything we're busy with, I sit in the PSP unit as the gunslinger. The PSP program is designed to fix the economy. And this corridor from the Port of Durban, the associated ports of Ngqa, even Cape Town and East London and Port Elizabeth, but the whole intermodal system, including automotive, we treat as one system. And it is critical that we fix that, because if you look at the economic impact, it is what matters. Okay, so the next slide then, just a few things. So from the rail policy, there's a policy statement, I hope you can see at the back, that says that the Department of Transport shall establish a rail planning component to develop a national rail master plan. Now, the national rail planning component requires the legislative authority, because it stands to budgeting and so on. So there is let's call it an interim function, but the plan has now been developed. And as you know, it took a while for the minister to get permission from Cabinet to share the draft rail master plan. And the reason it went to Cabinet, in my humble opinion, is it is such a dramatic document over time, if you think what it stands to, so that everybody is on the same page before we ask opinions about it in government. It shall articulate the national centralized strategic plan that directs the infrastructure investment initiatives over rolling, short, medium, and long terms. And the National Rail Master Plan shall also identify network constraints and opportunities, as well as infrastructure improvements and expansions required to ensure safe, affordable, and efficient movement of freight and passengers. No, it's freight and passengers. And the DOT shall champion the rail revitalization program, as in conjunction with obviously the SOEs and the provinces and governments. And now you see introduction of local government sphere and also provincial government sphere. Remember, we don't have a hierarchy of government. We have 3 spheres of government, each with their own constitutional mandate. And so just been through a process now with the KZN province to establish a competency on those things that traditionally were only at national. The Western Cape has led on it. They've already got legislation, and so does Gauteng. For the provinces to tool up for not just provincial roads, but also rail competency and such. And it also shall include all projects, all flavors, the standard gauge program, everything happening shall be coordinated by DOT. DOT will even coordinate the Association of Standards. So this rail planning component is not the 3 very powerful words, because that is the mechanism through which it will execute. So from a policy implementation priorities, if you read the rail policy and the freight logistic roadmap, which I was also a co-author, accounting separation of Transnet Freight Rail's infrastructure manager. At the time it was still, Transnet Freight Rail was still the integrated railroad. So we've now separated the infrastructure manager and the train operator. There's a Chinese wall. We're debating the Chinese wall every day. But the Chinese wall is through the interim rail economic regulator capability, which is an interim structure before the transport economic regulator is now activated. The board is, I think the council has been approved already and appointed, and so it's happening. And one of the things that the policy said, there must be a network statement. You can't get access to a network if you don't know what it looks like, what the rules are. 2 days ago, I think Ali was with me in the room, I'm not sure who else, was the public consultation of version 4 of the network statement. It's a birthing process, it's very painful. Kudos to those companies that stepped forward and say, we're prepared to work on this network as third-party operators, those 11 companies, because it's a bit of a moving target. The network's not in good nick, and they've committed to start doing that. The rail policy was approved on the 22nd of March of 2022. Now, we all get riled up how long things take, but if you think what happened from 1910 to now, all of this happened literally in the last 5 years. Everything you see has happened in the last 5 years. It is quite, worldwide it is quite radical. National Rail Bill is not yet enacted. It's still in draft. Third-party access commences, so agreements are out. We are there. We think the first trains, in theory, can run from early next year. And I think Network Statement 4 is better than Network Statement 3 was, and it's already in version 4. And maybe Network Statement 5 will start reaching diminishing returns of what the network definition is to run on and how the rules work and who gets access and the like. Recovery of commuter rail networks, that's running very well. They've recovered 35 of the 40 corridors, but not all 700 stations, so there's still limited stop. We used to run 600 million passengers per annum. Then it fell down to 17 during lockdown, that lockdown period. We're back to 170, but we need 500 million to be able to afford the funding gap. And for that, you need more stations operational. But literally everything was broken and stolen by the time we got to 17 million people. Branch line concessions commences, that hasn't happened yet, but the request for information that Transnet Infrastructure Manager has launched to find out what do people want to do with the branch lines. That RFI is out, and you can go and read it and respond to it. So that's running a bit late. SOE published their baseline network statements. Transnet's Rail Infrastructure Manager has done that. And let me be very clear. The policy says there shall be a network owner who has the obligation of infrastructure management. And that entity must be, it's a utility, if you like. It's a road provider, a railroad provider. That entity should be standing alone. So just as the Ports Authority is now leaving Transnet, so shall the infrastructure manager. So we're in an interim phase of these terms still being inside of Transnet. That means it had to find its own commercial model and all the things, and it's being regulated as a utility, much as the Port Authority is regulated as a utility, which means the commercial operations has wheels and cranes, if you think about it. And those two entities will jointly be regulated by the Transport Economic Regulator. So there'll be only one transport, whether it's ports regulation, that'll be folded in. That's all happening as we speak. And then the National Rail Master Plan must be completed, which is the subject of where we are now. So we're in public consultation. Ray Dalio is probably the fund manager, is probably most famous for this, but many people has this construct published of radical transparency. Publish everything. It's like the blockchain. Then nobody can hide. And we must commend all and sundry in the industry, including the SOEs and the ministries, for being radically transparent. When we did the RFI, I said to the minister, we will do that on the basis we publish the results as is. You can go download the reports, all 1,500 pages of it, and see every single thing, and we've got an audit trail to what people wrote. So that's good, because then we get the thought processes from everyone going, and we know what we're dealing with. The evolution of commuter rail, that hasn't happened yet, but I can tell you now, if you give a broken commuter rail to a municipality or province, they will have a new problem to being able to survive it. So I'm not perturbed about it. So that is targeted was 2024. Up to 2030, we said local authorities must complete planning for additional urban guided transit, so that's a passenger thing. Commencement of the National Rail Master Plan implementation on priority corridors. The National Rail Master Plan is the lodestar to 2050. And a network statement is actually an instance of what it looks like today. And then we fix it and we publish the next version. You'll see it's more reliable here. We've got more stations, more sidings. So the network statements are instances of the National Rail Master Plan. So it's very important that we agree on the master plan, because that's where the money is going to go. And when you invest in railroads, you put a 50-year window on permanent way, you put a 30-year window on rolling stock, you put a, in theory, only 15 or 20, but it's typically 40-year view on train movement control. These things last a long time. Our network was mostly built by 1928, except for the heavy ore lines. The reason for that is that 1928 they invented the diesel turbo, and suddenly we didn't have ox wagons and trains, we now have trucks and trains. So we stopped building more railroad at the time. And then conclude the business case for the first standard gauge pilot. And this is a big issue because standard gauge requires very different alignments. And if we're going to build a standard gauge train, high-speed train Joburg-Durban, we have the Drakensberg in the middle. Currently, there are 90 kilometers of tunnels on the existing Natal corridor. Each one had to be drilled. So if you're going to build you can't switch off the NATCOR and replace those. The trains don't fit. Even if you do, then you don't have a NATCOR. So these things are business case driven. Then long term, to finish the plan, then conclude the priority corridor projects of freight and passenger rail. We're part of the AU 2063 vision, so there's a whole story of African corridors, whole Cape to Cairo model. The rail mode finding its rightful position. This is the problem. As long as a ship requires 7 to 10 trains to do a ship load and offload, and we have 70 to 100 wagons, road trucks equivalent to a train, if you take out the train, you can't service the ship. It's that simple. That's why if you go to Bayhead Road, you see if the trains aren't there, the system comes to a grinding halt. So this Russian doll of ships to trains to trucks, please help me with an alternative. I don't know of anyone others. We have to make the railway system work. A rightful place where it's a responsible economic citizen. Okay, so there are 6 foundational elements. This comes straight from the master plan. Must be present for balanced system. You need the demand. Somebody wants to use it for people and products. And you need rolling stock, network, and you need train movement control. I don't like the word signaling. You need the ability to manage the circulation of trains. If we look around the world, you'll find we can take lessons from North America in that number 1, which is hardcore commercialization. They privatized in 1980 with the Staggers Act. They sold off everything, and they're driving efficiency and network density, all those good things. We can learn a lot from that, from a freight point of view, even from a passenger point of view. If you look at the development states, Russia, India, China, you'll find state support for expansive railways to meet both economic and social needs. We can learn from that as well, but we still have a housing problem in the country. We still have a water and sanitation problem. We can't just think we only have to spend all the money on trains. So we need to be fair in the economy. And if you look at Europe, which is highly developed, you'll hear words like sustainability, modal shift from road to rail, green. You know, if you go from road to rail, that shift gives you 80% of the green. Whether that's a diesel train, electric train is the argument of the last 25%. First, get it onto a train. Can't get it onto a train if the train doesn't work. And if you have a train that exists, but it is available, but it's not appropriate as a service, you have to make the service appropriate as well. It doesn't have to be available, it's not appropriate. So we must learn from all of these. Anita, I guess this will be made available. So, so what are we looking at? We're looking at a current rail network on the left. It's about 23,000 kilometers. It's a 10x between freight and commuter, 21 to 2,300 kilometers. And it's a bit of everything. You'll see those red lines on the left. Is the iron ore line. That's a specialized heavy ore line. Think of these heavy ore lines as non-conventional railroads. They're actually conveyor belts, very long conveyor belts. Their job is to move a heap to the sea. And the inventory carrying cost, whether it's lying at the mine and lying at the sea, doesn't really matter. It's not the same if you've got a bunch of T-shirts and dress suits in the container. It matters. The working capital matters in the chain. So cargo assembly bases, we know the ship's coming, we're going to put the ship on the coast, on the terminal, ship arrives, we can service the ship. Very similar to a stack logic. But the inventory carrying cost is very different for bulk freight from the stuff we do with boxes, which is half the GDP. Then you'll see there's a rationalized model in the middle, takes it from 23,000 total to 21,300. So the freight goes down from 9 to 19,000 Ks, and the commuter rail goes down 2,300, and you can see what it's done for. There's all sorts of functions, but this is really in line, the middle one, with the freight logistics roadmap. So roughly, if you look at the blue arterial, which is Cape Town, past Kimberley, little hop across to Hotazel, north to Joburg, and then all the way to Zimbabwe and down to Durban, that is the core network that everybody needs, but nobody wants to pay for. Like, we need it, but we're not going to pay for it, because because I don't have anything on the core network. I just want to run on that highway. The green lines tend to be a good feeder. The classic example would be this one here. This is the eastern limb of the Chrome system. So that is Tubatse, Leidenburg, down to Belfast. They have to use, bulk is enough, they have to use trains to get onto it, but they join at Belfast and then they can choose to go to Richards Bay or Maputo, which they tend to prefer. So that feeder is viable by itself, but it is not viable if it doesn't have access to the blue line. So that's how we crafted the freight logistics roadmap. The grey pieces are major, I don't like to call it branch lines, maybe short lines that we can make money off, but a very different business case. And then on the right is then the future railroad. And you'll see there's some dotted lines. These are new track, either new track or dual gauge or standard gauge. You'll see there's a standard gauge railway that will service Gauteng, Cape Town. There's only one rail tunnel, so you can double stack containers in the new model. India has figured out to have electrified train with 2 containers on top and a catenary 10 meters above the track. They're the only country in the world that has done that on their dedicated freight corridors. So this is the plan. So when people say, what does the National Rail Master Plan look like? It looks like this. You know, sort of a disappointment. But what's behind that picture is the magic. Credit to the team at DOT having done this completely digital. So it's in a S3 database for those who understand geographic information systems, and we can add layers, and we do. So what in fact this afternoon I've got a meeting, we've done the, part of the job is to understand what conditions these corridors in. So we do independent technical assessments, done it for the coal line, the ore line, just finished it from Ogies all the way to Lepelale, which is the chrome and the incoming Botswana coal in time. We're currently halfway through the NATCOR. We had this week the technical review meeting. It will be done by end of August, I guess. Then we know what's wrong with it, how much money it's going to cost to fix it, and what needs to be fixed. That's critical to know, to do an investment program. And if you're going to do private sector participation, those reports must be in the data room for the investors to know what they're going to deal with. So we really understand the system now well. Much better. We haven't done this corridor yet. We'll do that ITA. The next one is probably the manganese route. We need to understand, before we switch on a manganese terminal project in Port Elizabeth, 3 minutes, I've got 4 minutes to go. 5 minutes, okay. I'm not going to talk through this. I just want to show you. Go the other way. Sorry, back. Apologies. As we have for the freight network, the plan, we have a plan also done the same exercise to clean up the passenger rail system. So we have an entropy problem. Those who understand entropy, the chaos factor. Over time it became chaotic. And then the chaos factor causes the systems not to run elegantly. So the team under Dr. Dave van der Meulen has gone and cleaned up the network to say we don't need this, there's no reason to have it now. And if we switch that piece off, these trains can run faster because we don't have crossing points. So they've cleaned up the network quite nicely. For each one of the, just understand, so this is the big one. This is Pretoria and let's say Tshwane and Ekurhuleni and Joburg metros all together, all the way down to, in fact, Vereeniging, Heidelberg. This is eThekwini, up and down the coast, inland to Cato Reach. So this is PRASA, and this is the Cape Town network. And the one that works very well now, the nice one, is the one that goes to somewhere that goes to down there, Simonstown. This line works very nicely. It's a simple thing to do, but the real line you want to run is the central line that goes all the way up to Kailicha. Okay, just to give you an idea. So this picture compares the value, the commercial value of road freight and bulk minerals. What you'll see is you'll see that the road freight has got no volume, but it's got enormous value. There's no value here. There's the iron ore line and there's the coal line, big volumes. But the road freight, you can see the economic value of what we move. So if we don't fix, Johan, that A-frame, if we don't fix that, our economy doesn't function. We just have to fix that. It's very interesting that from an intermodal point of view, this link. Yeah? which is partially because we do this down here in Port Elizabeth. And if we build this now up to a super hub, which is the plan, they're able to take the ultra super large carriers, 24,000 box vessels, the new fleet from CMA and Maersk and MSC. This port has to double capacity. Currently do, 12, 14,000 boxes a vessel, depending full and empty. It's got to go to 24,000. To do that, you have to change the port, fundamentally. And then the reason is 25% of sub-Saharan Africa boxes are dropped and collected here. 25%, 1/4. Then, if you can't bring those boxes, ships in there, then you can't make this even a transshipment port, because why would they not take that there? And if we do it somewhere else, then we have to sail back. That's $2,000 a box extra. We can't afford that. So that is the plan for the intermodal system. That's why I have to think of it as a system. Can't think of it as Durban or Corridor or Natal, whatever. But the heart of the system is here from an intermodal point of view, because of the proximity to Gauteng. Then just the future railway, you can see in future we're going to have a core network, which is sort of this purplish one. We're going to have a feeder network, and then we got short lines, which we don't show. So we have a deep plan. There's a deep plan. Now what I've done, my job was to compare them, and I'm almost done. There's strong alignment, 20 or so of the policy statements, strong alignment, already translated into NRP. Then there's about 10 where the direction is present, but the implementation detail or the governance is incomplete. So if you compare the policy to the document, and there's exactly one which is tourist trains, that's not on the list. So what I did, just show how I went about this, I said, here's the white paper. Let's, from all these dimensions, assess what happens in the National Rail Master Plan. And then literally the white paper said that, that one said that, residual action clause by clause. So this I will leave with you. I'm just going to show you. So we got a strategic planning, governance layer, centralized planning, roles and responsibilities. So we went like this, and I'm just going to flip through them to give you an idea of the scope of what happened. And then this is my gift to SAAFF. To do the pictures, you do need to do the tables. Okay, so also then went through. Let's go the other way. Went through the most important things that are missing. Remember I said we don't have a rail tourism thing. There's a big gap. It's low priority, but it's missing. There are others. So we also created sort of a short list. Oh, that's me. So we have that. I've submitted to BUSA the detail assessment. BUSA will submit it, like the spreadsheet, 400-row spreadsheet, which they will then sum up and insert as part of the commentary to the National Rail Master Plan through BUSA. Thank you very much.
Correct. Thank you, Jaap. I don't know, must I be excited about the 400 pages of the schedule that you sent to BUSA, because we submit our comments, but that was 4 pages. So definitely you are the walking encyclopedia. And I think you enlighten us with good things that we can take forward, and we will definitely share the presentation. I just want you to give a round of applause, because Maria's going to leave us and we will continue with the program. And thank you very much, Maria, for being here. Much appreciated.
Not that I don't want to be here. I am actually attending a session with TITA and National Skills Authority and Department of Higher Education.
Yeah, maybe let I brag about her while she walks out. She's the first time ever there's somebody from the industry to be on the TITA board, and it was been selected to be Maria. So I think we're very proud, and we support her tremendously, because she's got a passion for skills, and she wants to make sure that we bring the young people into the system. So for that, I really applaud her. So Claude, we were waiting for you. I'm not going to tell you much about Claude. I think you will enjoy his presentation. But maybe, Claude, I think you will behave today. We will just take a little bit of sugar in our coffee. The states are yours. No, the states are yours.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. Hi, Brenda. Hi, everyone. I don't have a presentation. I don't even have a topic of conversation. I just want to thank you. That was really impressive. And you actually made my life very easy because you brought my favorite word, entropy. And so I'm supposed to talk about the economy and economic growth and economic development. But I thought let's rather make a conversation out of that. So, you know, when I look at this, what you guys are doing, phenomenal work, the first thing that comes to my mind is, why did we get here? And how did we allow ourselves to get here? Why is it that we are congratulating ourselves for growing at 1% per annum? You know, how 1% per annum gets our GDP per capita stagnant after 10 years of decline, year on year. And what surprises me is the fundamental disconnect between the kind of self-congratulation that I hear from, you know, business circles and government, and the reality when I just turn my face to the left or to the right and I look around me. The masses of unemployed people, the poverty, the misery, the absence of opportunity. And I just read the World Bank report on the special economic zones. I don't know if you guys saw that, but DTIC and the World Bank worked together on producing a new report on the country's special economic zone program, and it was an astounding exercise in cognitive dissonance. I had the impression I was reading a book about a program in another country. So, you know, entropy, negentropy, anentropy, order versus disorder, central planning versus markets, chaos versus structure, purpose versus randomness. We live in a world of astounding crisis. We are witnessing, perhaps, the most fundamental shift in human history of the past 500 years. We might even be witnessing the most fundamental shift in human trajectory of the past 20,000 years. And I look around and I see people's nose to their phones. I travel, I have a job in Papua New Guinea right now. And I travel there and I stop at Singapore Airlines. I'm on the airplanes and I see these hundreds of thousands of people consuming, running, traveling, going to Taiwan, going to Singapore, and going to Thailand on holiday, squeezed, eating absolutely horrible food that we give them, while the planet is burning, while people are struggling to make a living, and I think something's fundamentally broken. It seems that we've lost our purpose. It seems that we've lost our capacity to just step back and think. We're just merely functioning as individuals. Now, it's very difficult not to just function because we have to feed ourselves and we have to pay the bills. Yeah? And this is not a lesson in philosophy, you know, because I've been doing a lot of work for the past many years, and I'm starting to think, you know, what is it that I actually can contribute? And you asked me to behave, and I tell you, I made a decision to behave about 2 years ago. I made a decision that I will no longer be disruptive for the sake of being disruptive, shocking for waking up people. Now, sometimes, you know, my temperament takes the better of me, and I do things and I say things I shouldn't say. But it's a funny thing. I just find myself wondering, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to do? What is my contribution? What actually do I know? What do I know? So I'm an economist, I'm a political scientist, I'm an anthropologist, I'm a geographer. I've worked on special economic zones and logistic systems for the past 30 years. I'm an economic development specialist. I've worked organized crime busting. I've run state-owned airlines. I've done a million things. I'm a data guy. I'm an AI guy. I'm fascinated by AI. And the more, I look at what I think I know, and the more I realize it's just abstraction. It's just stuff that I've gathered through the existing knowledge of societies. What is reality? What's real? Do I know actually anything? If I get out of my little narrow definition of field, do I actually know anything? And I'm not sure I actually know or understand anything. And people who tell you that they know and understand things are lying to you. They're lying to themselves. Pluck them out of their environment where all the codified knowledge and institutions and behaviors exist. The mathematical program that we run, which we call ourselves, take that person and pluck them out of their environment, put them somewhere else, and suddenly they are like an incompetent baby. Incompetent baby. I think what we need is we need to be a lot less arrogant about what we think we are and what we achieve. I have no reason for me to say any of this except to say there is nothing to be self-congratulatory right now in South Africa about what we think we've achieved, whether it's BUSA, BLSA, the government, the DA, the ANC, and all that. We are the self-appointed elite. We are in the room because of our education, because of our parents, because of the money we inherited, because of the businesses we got from our families. And we pretend to be running the world, or our sectors, our business. And we rarely think about what it actually means. We rarely really question. And there's two problems with that. One is that we overestimate our importance and our ability to make things happen, which is a deadly sin. And the second one is that we underestimate what we could actually do if we really applied what we've achieved and what we've gained to make real change. And I see it. I was in Reunion Island 2 days ago, and I'm visiting one of my childhood friends who's running a hotel, 5-star hotel, leading hotel of the world. And he says, come, just come in. Just come and see, tell me what you see in 10 minutes. And I come and I say, all right, this is what I see. I see a 3-star hotel pretending to be a 5-star hotel. I see something that was designed by someone who had a childhood dream and a wet dream about owning a 5-star hotel. I see no concept whatsoever. I see no ownership of a concept whatsoever. Why are the rooms orientated that way? Because everybody orientates the rooms on a tropical island towards the ocean. But the real wealth of this place is the mountains behind, and the forest, and all of that. And nobody has thought about it because we're so plugged in what a 5-star hotel is supposed to be. I said the employees have no clue what they're doing. They have no idea why they're working here. That's 5 minutes. What do you think of the food? I said pretentious, tasteless, contradictory. He says if the owner sees you, he's going to shoot you. I said that's fine. I don't mind being shot. The whole thing is, then he says, what are we going to do about this? I said, just gather all of the team, just gather all of the employees and ask them the question, what are we doing here? Why are you coming to work every day? What is this about? They charge 700 euros a night. I'm like, I wouldn't pay 100. But, people will come. They come from Sweden and Norway and England to that hotel. Why? Because they read a review from people who flipping paid 14,000 rands the night, hated the place, but cannot put themselves to acknowledge in writing that they got conned. So the reviews are fabulous. The reviews are fabulous. We are all lying to ourselves because we have put those clothes on that tell us this is who we are. You know, I'm this 55-year-old white man from blah, 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 and I have this degree and that degree, and therefore this is my place in the world, and this is what is expected out of me, and this is what I... No. Screw this. I mean, we are looking at something astounding where we are predicting that in the next 2 to 3 summers, if things continue on trajectory in Europe, there will be no summer vacation season anymore. I mean, think about what that means. There's like every summer in Europe, 500-600 million people vacationing. Think about what that means in terms of the transport system, in terms of the road system, in terms of the revenue system, the hotels, the employment, etc. We are contemplating something that is happening so fast that our minds are not able to reckon with it. You know what changed me? My relationship with reality was the pandemic. I always had a sense, I was always a bit of a rationalist and a structuralist, which means that I always believed that there exist fundamental structures of reality. So you have a layer of reality, and then you have institutions and symbols, right? But they are connected. And I'm still working on some of those ideas, but here we have this thing that just hits us, and it shuts the world economy down like this. Right? We all thought that globalization was an irreversible force that had superseded national governments and sovereignty. And geopolitics was a thing of the past. It was quaint. 220 states, government states, shut down the world economy in the space of 2 months. I think that causes, for pause. What kind of society do we have, right? Where you can have a Titanic event where in one fell swoop, 200 strokes of the pen, and the world economy stops. But what's really shocked me about this is not that, because I'm a political scientist at heart, which means that I know that we live in a system of states and that the states own the fundamental power of the system. And contrary to what some believe, when state collapse, markets don't spontaneously rise and society flourishes. When state collapse, it's Somalia. Life is miserable. When state collapse, like in South Africa, right, after 2009, life is miserable. Markets don't spontaneously rise. What really shocked me was that despite the obvious reality of the virus and the people who were dying around us, and we all have people we know who have died of COVID, was a sizable minority of people who were convinced that it was either not real or a conspiracy or something pushed to turn us into 3G towers through a vaccine. No, but think about this. And I thought, even in the face of something as brutal and violent as a pandemic, and now even in the face of something as obvious and lived at the personal level as climate change on a catastrophic level, we have the capacity as human beings to tell ourselves that this is not happening, that it's not true. Our ability for self and other delusion is almost infinite. It is almost infinite. Which means that the power of imagination, of the power of the mind, is just extraordinary. Right? And it can be extraordinarily destructive to ourselves and to others. And it can also be extraordinarily renewing. I have these conversations about South Africa. So let's get back on topic, right? I have these conversations about South Africa with my friends in business and government. And, you know, and they are all kind of self-congratulating. And I say, yeah, sure. We didn't just carry on collapsing. We kind of had the wherewithal to acknowledge the depths of crisis. And I take a little bit of credit for some of those realizations. I mean, I wrote between 2017 and 2021-22 a series of pieces that went all the way to the presidency, that went everywhere, where I said, if we carry on trajectory by 2030, South Africa is a failed state. And by failed state, this is what it means. And Moletsi Mbeki said to me, you know, you did it. I mean, your report is everywhere. And I said, but how come I don't get work? He said, nobody likes a fucking Cassandra, mate. Sorry. They'll take the warning, you know, and they'll work on it, but they won't call you in to help. So everybody is now busy, right? This is what we like to be. We like to be busy. We're fixing problems. We're planning. We're implementing. We're designing. We're talking. My question is, will there be an economy? Will there be an economy for that? And my answer is no. Not the way we are growing, not the economy we have. Just think about this. Do you know how much money is being invested in the United States only in AI? Call it a boom, I don't care. It is likely a boom, or a bubble, whatever. How much money is being invested this year, 2026, in AI or in the United States? Please. Yeah. A few trillion. About 5 or 6 times South Africa's economy. GDP per capita. GDP. Where is South Africa in the industries of the future? Where is it? We finally got the DTI to acknowledge that South Africa's industrialization is a pipe dream. Yeah, reality did that 30 years ago. Hello? If it takes our geniuses in government to acknowledge reality 20 years after it manifested, you know, this is what I'm talking about climate change and about COVID and about reality. This is a society that is entirely controlled by vested interests who are very happy to grow at 1%. Because at 1%, they're making their money. They're very happy at 1%. It is astoundingly mediocre. It is astoundingly complicit. When I try to have conversations about how do we get to 3, 4, 5% from people who should think about this, the answer is we are just too busy fixing Eskom, Transnet, water, roads, organized crime. And I say, surely, strategy is more than just crisis management. Surely, in a country of 50 million people and the largest economy in Africa, there's got to be enough resources, enough skills, enough people to have a bunch of crisis managers, to have a bunch of medium-term thinkers, and to have a bunch of people who think 10, 15, 20 years ahead. There's got to be, not only is it a moral imperative, but it's also a vested interest, rational imperative. We have in this country absolutely zero think tank focused on these questions. One of the last think tanks that was kind of thinking sometimes about that stuff was Branter's Foundation, and it's been killed off. Jonathan got bored. Oh, I'm going to do something else with my money. I'm trying to talk to rich people and say, with all the money you make in creaming the system, you know, where there is no wealth creation, guys. I mean, where is the wealth creation? We are just recycling money in South Africa. The banks are adding a bit of interest, they're adding a bit of liquidity, and the money supply is growing a little bit, and that gets recycled. But where is the big story? Where is South Africa's big story? Where is it? So it's not heavy industries anymore. Okay, right. We're not going to be players now anymore in smelting and refining, and heck, the few smelters we still have are closing down. So what are we going to be transporting on all these beautiful railroads? We're asleep at the bottom of Africa, watching the ships come by, like cows in the field watching trains, going back to grazing. I'm sorry, guys. Maybe it's good enough for you. Certainly not good enough for me. Maybe for the people of South Africa who are so used to just surviving, maybe it's just good enough for them. But I don't see how it's going to work in the long term. You know, 10, 15 years ago, the world was relatively friendly to places like ours. The United States and the ex-Soviet Union and then Russia and China, they all loved our story. They played along. Now we find ourselves, we BRICS. BRICS? What is BRICS? What is BRICS? It's a concept invented by a guy, a banker, Jim O'Neill, to try to identify the next growth potential. And the countries say, hey, we like that, so we create the BRICS as a non-Western, anti-G7 thing. But anyone who has a little bit of knowledge of history will know that a grouping of countries where you have two historical enemies, India and China. Do you guys know that they've been, how many times have India and China gone to war since 1948, please? Not to war with other people, with each other, either directly or indirectly. Either directly or via Pakistan and Bangladesh. Please. How many times have India and China gone to war? They are irreducible enemies. Enemies don't work together. If you look at what happens in BRICS, it's a game of China blocking India and India blocking China. It's a game of poker, that's all it is. South Africa is the junior baby of the BRICS for political reasons, symbolic reasons, period. Who are our friends? Where is our future market? In a world where we are going to have increasingly to choose between a predatory United States and a predatory China, because they're both predatory, because they're both in it for themselves. In a world where this is the world we're going to have, and in the middle we have Europe trying to play by some rules. Who are we going to be? Where are we going to sit? What are our investment strategy? What are our trade strategy? What are our commercial strategy? What diplomacy should we have? What economy are we going to have? What are we going to be producing? What are we going to be producing? Because look around, we're not producing much. And we're producing less and less. And where we have clear opportunities, clear competitive advantage, clear comparative advantage, we are hobbled by things like rail and road and transport and regulations and the likes. So I keep saying to people, please, in whatever you do, whatever you have to do, all the crises you have to deal with every day in your business and your personal life and your business associations, take some time to think. Take some time to observe. Take some time to have conversations and see what you can do to make a difference, not just how we're performing today and tomorrow, but where we are going and how we can arise those conversations. Don't be the guys who think that you can still go to Europe and France and Paris in August or July in the next 4 or 5 years. Don't be the people who, I'm sorry to say, refuse to be vaccinated or refuse the rules because we don't know and therefore. I agree with you. We don't always know, but we need to be a little bit prudential and a little bit not selfish. How can SAAFF, which does a lot of work, start thinking beyond crisis? Beyond crisis in a world where we are going to be devoured by crisis. Crisis of immigration, crisis of starvation. How our food systems are going to be coping with what's coming. How our retirement systems are going to be coping. And I don't want you guys to think, who is this guy? He's absolutely nuts and he's having a mental breakdown. And he offers nothing. No. If we don't wait, we are the canary in the coal mine. We just need to wake up. In terms of logistics system in South Africa, your main interrogation should be, what is going to be my economy about in the next 5, 10 years? What am I going to be transporting? What am I going to be facilitating? What? And for that, I need to have a theory of the economy of South Africa in the future. And I need to have and for that, I need a theory of South Africa in the world. And for that, I need a theory of the world. And then I need to have a theory of my business in that world. In South Africa, in my sector. Otherwise, I will simply survive because I'm lucky or I will be unlucky. No one is going to ask you to destroy your business. Whether it's government's folly, or whether it's a fundamental change in logistical systems, whether it's a fundamental change in technology, it's coming. When you have a new industry, I'll just finish it. I had conversation with government and I spoke about AI and energy transition. And they will always say to me, we have time. No. We have time. No. We are going to do this, and then in 5 years' time, we're going to do that, and in 5 years' time. I said, and who do you think you are? Do you think you get to dictate the speed at which society moves? Simply because it does not fit your power plans, your comfort, your belly size, and your ideology? So I mean, I said it was going to be a conversation, but I think I did most of the talking. Juanita, how do we finish this?
No, you must have one quote and then we wrap up.
Yeah. Okay, it's 500,000 rand, my quote. No, my plea to you guys is find a way to get us to think and converse about the shape of the future beyond this year and next year's crisis. How do you fill up that system? Right? Find a way to have real fundamental conversations about what does the future look like, what is blocking that potential future, and what can we all do to make it happen. Get your nose out of the water, above the parapet, put a little bit of your time and money and capital towards instruments of thinking and visioning and then doing. Don't assume that someone somewhere knows better and have your interest at heart. No one knows better, and no one cares more about your future than you should.
Thank you, Claude. I told you are controversial. So, colleagues, we're just going to have a quick comfort break, if that's fine, and then we're going to show you the practical rollouts today. Where is the NATCOR line? 3 trains. What do we want to do to take it to 7 trains, 11 trains, and what can we do in the long term? Thank you very much. Cyril, I wonder maybe we can... Cyril, can we bring some of the colleagues? Are they still outside or can we start? Okay. So we're moving to the last slot. So Brenda with her team is going to show us where are we currently with the NATCOR line, what do we need to do, and how can we resuscitate it to the, I wouldn't think now short term to maybe more than 11 trains a day, but I think the possibility is there, and then we will look 6 months thereafter. And then we will just wrap up with some questions, and then we'll close the session. So thank you, Brenda, over to you.
Netta, am I on? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I'm short, sir. How do I do this? My ear one, okay. Yeah, I must say upfront, Claude, you made me think about the fact that we must look at what the future looks like. We must have thinkers that talk about the future. But fortunately, some of us have to look at the crisis at this point in time. I'm taking note of what you're saying, but I'm very comfortable because I have my leadership in the room. I have my board members here. I have Juanita as a chairperson. I have Nosipo. I have Ali. You will guide us in terms of where Claude says we should be. And I know, because you were my leaders previously, you're my current leader, I know you thinkers, and I know you've taken everything that is said. So I'm very comfortable. We will get there. Yap said a lot about working towards an integrated system. It's a good work that they're doing, we must say. We have to start somewhere. Ours, as SAAFF, we're saying, how can we practically execute NATCOR to ensure that NATCOR works in the interim? Baby steps. I know that we're looking ahead in terms of what we need to do, and I will share with you what NATCOR looked like when Ali and Nosipo were at the helm of the things. The next slide. Thank you. Our vision as SAAFF is for NATCOR to be an integrated, reliable, and commercial viable container corridor that will shift, this is our dream, shift freight from road to rail. I know that it's a very aspirational thing to say, but this is where we used to be in the first place before. When you look at NATCOR now, it's a very sad picture. And I know it's not ideal to talk about what was, but we need to give you a picture in terms of the latent capacity that exists in NATCOR and compared to what you're seeing at this point in time. We're running about plus or minus 8 container trains per day. 29 hours turnaround time, which is really bad. And the rail carries less than 14% of the corridor volume. When you look in the past, which is why I said when it's operating optimally, NATCOR used to carry a lot of cargo on that line, up to 48 times 50 wagon trains per direction per day. 18 hours turnaround time. The actual safe and operable capacity must be validated by ITAs, which I'm going to talk to the next stage. when you look at where it used to be and where it could be, I'm not going to talk about what had happened for it to end up where it is, because it's something that is out there and it was in the paper and it's discussed a lot of times. Let's go to the ITAs. There are 3 ITAs at this point in time. The one was done by Transnet, where they look at internal infrastructure, which is a periodical assessment that they do for the purposes of planning, maintenance, and operational decision support. The second ITA is by DOT and RMF, which is a department-led independent technical assessment funded through the Resource Mobilization Fund. This is where CUF is participating. There are 2 members of CUF that are sitting at the STEERCO. The progress so far, it's planned to be issued by the date of issue is 15th of September 2026. For the Transnet one, I think that work is completed, yeah, Corley? The quick and dirty one is still in the process, right? The third ITA is the IDC line scan, which is a detailed line scanning survey from City Deep to Port of Durban. I believe that the procurement process is in the final stages on that one. So it's well and good. I remember in my previous life at the CCRT, we were talking about these ITAs as if they were not going to happen. We were quite nervous about them. It's quite comforting. I'm not taking credit. I know I'm not celebrating credit, but from where we come from, Claude, when there were no ITAs, nobody knew what the capacities look like, how would you get investors online, because we had no information, so we needed to get these ITAs. So it's quite important for us to see that this work is being done, right? Now that the ITA established what the railway needs, not whether the market will use it. The technical case that is made by the 3 ITAs that are being done is answering what must be repaired, replaced, or upgraded. Right? They'll identify ISAT conditions that will give us information on safety and compliance, capacity constraints, capital and maintenance cost, investment priorities. But there is a gap there. What they're not looking at is the commercial viability. So we're looking at that gap as CUF to say somebody has to address this gap, because you need to know and answer the question, what will make customers commit freight to rail? What would ensure that you get that modal shift? We all know when rail is functioning optimally, it's your best mode of transport for freight, not only by sheer size or economies of scale, but because of also the impact, the limited impact, the less impact that it has on transport externalities, which is your congestion, incidents, and pollution. And we've heard from YAP that other countries are doing very well in terms of getting that shift. So we have to work in the crisis so that we see how we get that modal shift. So we would answer, whether what are the required service levels? What are the addressable and committed volumes? What price and affordability thresholds? But we're not answering it on ourselves. As CUF will do a study, a commercial viability study that will answer these questions. What are operating on commodity models? What are bankable risk allocation? Infrastructure is not equal to customer demand. The good work that is being done by ATA will tell us what is in the infrastructure. Maybe somebody will ensure that there's an improvement in terms of that. But it doesn't guarantee you that you'll get the customer demand. And it doesn't guarantee you that you will have bankable revenue. Thank you, Corley. So the modal shift depends on complete customer proposition. The industry requirements have changed while rail reliability was not there. We know that. We know how in retail it's easy to lose customers when you're not giving because of the competition. They'll move to competition. Seems the same here. People have moved to road. Would they be interested to move back to rail once all the good work has been done, right? So what would the customer be looking at? Would they prefer reliability? Would you prefer reliability, transit time, slot frequency, total price, integration, or commercial certainty, or the combination of these? Would they want everything? We don't have that answer yet, right? But we know these are the things that are required for the system to run efficiently. The question that we need to answer is not, would you support rail when you talk to the shippers that have shifted? It is more important for them to know what will they need to contract to, at what price, at what service level, and TEM. That is the answer that this is the answer that we would want to know. This is what the commercial viability will give us. Because at this point in time, nobody knows whether that shift will happen or not. Okay, on this slide, we'll talk to the security, maintenance, speed restriction, and operational inefficiencies that need to be addressed. We believe that these need to be addressed as one corridor system, which we've seen with other corridors. It's important that you deal with it as a corridor system instead of doing bits and pieces of it. So the security constraints, we'll talk to the cable theft that is currently happening. We know about the vandalism that happens in the systems as well, and encroachment. We know the impact thereof. It's the disruption, asset replacement, which is very costly for Transnet at this point in time, and unsafe sections on the rail. The maintenance cost, we'll talk to the maintenance backlog, the failures and slow restoration, and the impact thereof is lower availability and unreliable track, which is not good for efficiencies on rail. Speed restrictions, which are good for just safety, to ensure that there's safety on the rail track because of the current unreliability of the track, which leads to longer transit time and reduced rail capacity. Operations, the constraint is resources, rolling stock, yards, and terminals, which then lead to missed slots, dwell times, and poor recovery. So you could see in all of this, one asset event results in and creates restriction, relies in loss of confidence because it creates restriction, missed opportunities, and delays. So when we look at all of this, we know that something has to work. If none of these are working in unison, it becomes a problem. We're not able to make the model shift that we want to make. Next, Godly. This is what we're proposing, that the interim improvement requires a joint corridor operating system. This is where we fit in because we work in a crisis environment, but something, we have to put something, we have to start. If we don't start now, we can't wait when Transnet goes on PSP in the next 3 to 5 years. We can't wait, we have to continue operating. We're saying the CUF will convene, align, and track and escalate, while other parties, operating parties, continue to do the work that they do. But what would be different here, while TRIM is doing infrastructure, maintenance, security, talks are doing locomotives, wagons, and crews are busy with that. Terminals continue handling windows and yards and whatever. Customer demand focus, credible commitments. We need to have a visibility where all parties work on a proposed plan that we're saying we need a 90, which currently I've changed that to 60. 60 to 180 joint work program, because we want to start somewhere, 0 to 60, then 60 to 120, 120 to 180. I'll share that in the next slide. So we need to have that visibility, which we believe, if we have a visibility to say, everybody can see, we set up a constraint heat map, we have weekly action plans, which we did with the container sector. We have protected maintenance windows. We also look at security hotspots and produce daily performance dashboards so that all the parties that are in the program can see this work. So on a weekly basis, there's a follow-through to see to it that it works. Because otherwise, CUF will not add value if there are no produced names, action, owners, dates, and measurable outcomes. We've done this at the CCRT. We can do it beautifully in this space as well. Next. So this is where I'm sharing to you what we mean by 60 to 180 a day program, right? All these day phases have the gate to take you from one step to the next step to the next step, right? What we're proposing is one train per day. Just putting one train per day to make a change. But when you're doing that, you will select one demand-backed service, confirm slots, plus terminal window, protect configuration, crew and route, clear the restrictions, because we know that we're currently having restrictions in the process. You let that process, that phase, run, and after 4 weeks, you look whether you have a reliable operation. Otherwise, you don't move to the next phase. So if we do well on that phase, then we can move to the next phase of 60 to 120 days. We repeat the proven service, which we would have done by adding 2 trains there, but we repeat the service. You know, the more you repeat, the more you become comfortable. And there's reliability there. We need to gain that in the system. So you remove the top recurring restrictions, add maintenance plus recovery windows to that, provide backup operating resources. And once you assess and see that there's a stable service and recovery, which is your next gate, then you can move to add 3 plus 3 trains. Unfortunately, we cannot do what Nosipo and Ali did before. They were able to increase more numbers. But unfortunately, then they were fortunate because the system was not so bad. We recognize that there are a lot of problems in the system at some point in time, so we do baby steps. So we add plus 3 to 4 trains, Juanita. I know you wanted to see 11 trains. We're saying when you add that plus 3 to 4 trains to the current 8, at least the number has moved. We'll continue assessing. You secure the additional paths and volume, strengthen the yard, plus terminal interfaces from port, inland ports and the water port. You extend the security gate coverage because you don't want to be disrupted while you're doing this program by the congestion at either point. So the best thing is to move the security gate, right? Extend the security coverage as well. The rolling stock and crew plan, you lock it so that now you have a sustainable contracted demand. We believe that is doable. If we can do this, and when we assess, because we'll be doing this on a daily, weekly, with the parties that are involved, if we find that there's sustained contracted demand, we can proceed beyond this and add more trains. We see it as a phased approach instead of just going in. We look at as is and what we can do without putting a lot of investment at this time, but start doing something. This is where we're operating. So we're saying the measurement that will be done on a daily basis is just to measure the train plan, which is the planned trains like we used to do, versus the train run. The on-time departures, end-to-end transit, restriction declared, and terminal dwell times, and customer volumes. So all of this is things that we'll continue measuring. What you don't measure, you can't, what do you say in English? You can't succeed if you don't measure. So you need to measure to see yourself whether you're succeeding or not. This is why we see ourselves as a team doing this work. Next, Corley. Is it that finished, that quick? Okay, let me talk to security. It was very quick. I need to talk to security. It is important for us to put heads together, Nosipo. We've learned from the coal sector that you've done brilliant work on the security side by working with Transnet and ensuring that there's security on your line, on your corridor. This is what we need to do. We know that TRIM will be working on security because it's in their window. Myself and Yuache were sitting with the Transnet CEO, Group CEO yesterday. We're talking about our interest as a collaborative to work with them and ensure that the first thing is that security online. And if we can copy and paste from what was done in other corridors, would be successful to ensure that we reduce the transit time for the NATCOR. So that's what we want to continue doing as a SAAFF and the operating parties as a joint program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope, colleagues, you enjoy the presentation this morning and we come to the question and answers, but maybe let us see if there's somebody who can help me with the people online, if there's any questions. Is there questions online? Just see. Any questions from the audience? Yes, Claude, please. We will get a roaming mic for you. There's somebody there at the back.
I think I'm still mic. I have a question for you, and
the mic comes. Just wait a little bit, otherwise the people.
It's a question.
Okay,
it's a question and a statement or an observation. Call it an observation based on what I said earlier. You said something really interesting. You said we know why we are where we are, and therefore let's focus on what we can do to fix. And you said you recognize, we are in crisis management. We're fixing the crisis. One of the things that I want to challenge people here is the assumption that what caused the crisis, the problem, the collapse of the economy of the logistics system, has been fundamentally solved. And my challenge is that are we not lulled into the notion that we can get back to the business of doing business right? So here you have a technical approach to technical problems. And you're recognizing that in fixing the technical issue, you're going to have to find a commercial solution, and that's unanswered. And your approach is rational, practical, effective, and logical, and it should work, because now you need to signal to the market that the system is working, and you want to do it progressively and constructively. But I'm challenging people to the danger, and again, it's nose to the wheel, right? Nose to the phone. We have a political system and we have a government which is in a very precarious balance, right? We have a president who is arriving soon at the end of his second term. We have contestations in the ANC for who's going to be leader. Is it safe for us to assume that the conditions that created the crisis in the first place, which we are only trying to fix technically, is it safe for us to assume that this crisis is solved, is over? And that's, again, is who is doing that thinking and who is doing that work in your organizations to make sure that whatever you're doing is not undermined by what might happen in the political landscape in 2 or 3 years' time. That's my question. Who is doing that work?
Yeah, like I said to you earlier, I'm comfortable because I have the think tanks in my board. I mean, we have various players in that board. I probably would need more of support if there's a need, the need arises. We have the people that can think, and I'm glad that you've raised it in this room, where, like I said earlier, they're here to hear that we need to just raise above the water. You're saying just be here and have somebody who's thinking outside the crisis that we're doing. So it's a food for thought. It's something that we have to look at. Yeah. We'll put our heads together and look at it.
Maybe, Claude, if I can help Brenda here, I just want to ask him something, and maybe that's what Claude also, or Jaap was showing us. If I just can get quickly to that slide. And pass Brenda's slides. This is the fundamental change. Because remember, in the road infrastructure, we had SANRAL, and SANRAL built in the N3, N4, in all the highways. And then they said, you as an operator come and you pay because you use the road. This is what's happening in the rail, which is phenomenal, because for the first time, they split Transnet to say that we do the track, you trim, and we maintain that. And then we see who's the operating companies, which is the 11, and we look at the 11 operating companies, and what Jaap was explaining so nicely, we do a network statement, and it tells them the rules of the game to work on the track. And then the third one, and I think he also touched on it, is the independent regulator. Now, the independent regulator for us as the industry is going to be the most important thing. It's fine, Minister Barbara Creasy announced the board, but we as business people need to see the layers behind the board, because that will give comfort. So that's why I said, for me, in the next 3 years, it's for us critical to get this in place. Because the moment we have the infrastructure, the track, which Brenda explained so nicely done, we have done the independent technical assessment. So we know now where's the problems, what needs to be done. Now it comes to the political will to fix it. And then we come to what she explained so nicely, the commercial realities. And the commercial realities, I hear what you're saying, there's a link to the technical constraints. But we think we can overcome that because of the reform process. That's why I am and I get a lot of criticism, we know that, but we need to drive as an industry collectively reform. We cannot fall back. If we let ourselves to fall back, not on the reform, I think that's what I want to say to you. then our thought leadership, the 1% growth, all of that becomes real. And then we are people that don't live our passion, because then we don't care about the 1%. And I think if we get this right, and I'm not, people think I'm close to Minister Barbara Chris, I'm not, I'm just following her and see all the statements she made. But I must say it's a lady with a passion or a vision to get us on this path. And if we stay on this path, it will be phenomenal. We see also the trends now in the port system, although it's not mature, because we have seen now Pier 2 we've given to the ICTSI, but what happened now? The ICTSI is a private sector, it's closed, so they don't share information to the broader sector. That's something that we need to work with, because we, as the people in the logistics network, need to understand. So I'm not the one to say private sector is better than public sector. It's to say we need to mature how to work with each other, because that we haven't done. But I wouldn't say it's the one above the other, but I definitely I will take it to the board, and we will take you up on your thought leadership series, because I think you're quite right. We have to bring that back in our country, and we need to debate quite a lot about those things. Barbara?
Correct.
Brenda?
No,
Anything else?
No, I'm done.
I'm done. Is there any questions? There's another question. Yes, please. Yep, you are on. They can put you on the screen.
Is this still working?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. TNPA, is my understanding, is currently tooling up for 9 million TEUs through Durban, which is fantastic, because it talks to a post-extractive resources economy. Sadly so, it's an import model. I think, we need to get the balance right. But if we understand that 90% of the world's stuff goes in boxes, not in bulk vessels, then we get our head around it. But it strikes me that City Deep can do 400,000 boxes, and Durban currently can do 4 million. Yeah. It's a 10x, man. This is a dumbbell in the gym with a 1 kilogram ball on the one side and literally a 10 kilogram ball on the other side. It's very difficult to do bench presses without adjusting your body. Now they're going to 11 million boxes, which is right. And I look out here, when I was a kid, this was Plaas, né? Now we have the fanciest hotel here in Bredell. Why? Because just behind it we have a plethora of warehousing. First world, this Ekurhuleni complex is incredible how it's exploded in the last 10 years. And 3 kilometers from here is the Central Rand Railway depot. There's about 500-600 kilometers of track there. I don't think a single train goes through it anymore. It was visionary at the time, but we try to take the trains into Johannesburg CBD, where you can't get a truck in 6 hours, and Kazerni is switched off. Yeah. So it's a bit like Africa never had fixed line telephony, so it could leapfrog into mobile. Let's not build fixed line telephony to catch up on telephones. We need to, and fully agree with the thought leadership, we need to reimagine an AI-impacted world, which all of us will become redundant from a knowledge point of view in the next 6 months, not in the next 6 years. We need to find a way how as an economy to respond to the $4 trillion bubble. And even if half of it dies, there'll still be $2 trillion left. And what can we on the southern tip of Africa do to respond to an AI world? So the move from the petrodollar to the silicon dollar, how do we deal with that? Because it's already happening here. It's take a lot. My kids buy a machine and take a lot. I get so many freaking phone calls every day. Somebody's being delivered to us, Daddy, will you take it? So I'm not there. There's no post office. It's courier company after courier company after courier company working out of these warehouses. Those things they don't come all by air cargo, they come by containers. They come by road. And that is the new cost model we must engineer for as a logistics system. That is the new shipping infrastructure. I just had a quick look of there are now 540 vessels in the top 10 carriers with more than 14,000 boxes. 20% of them is already above 20,000 boxes per vessel. We can take 12,000 box vessels in Durban. And we have one terminal that is very big, dominating the country, and we know nothing now. Your point. So how do we plan our economy if literally 40% of our boxes go through a terminal where we have no visibility what happens as a country? How do we do that? Those are the debates we must settle now. So I'm very excited in that if we can connect economic development planning, get it off the ground properly, I actually think our logistics thought processes and the activities we're busy with, and by the way, Juanita coined NLCC in the meeting with the president. That's how it got its name. Where she got the name, I don't know, but it was a brilliant name. The point is, we acknowledged it's a crisis. I was with her in meetings with the president and said, this is not National Business as Usual Committee, this is a National Logistics Crisis Committee. So let's use those momentum to establish one base. Then at least we know the thing that should be 10% of the GDP is fairly working well. Now fix the GDP on top of it. To Claude's point, what are you going to do with it? Is it appropriate? And you can't have 11 million boxes coming through Durban and receive 400,000 in Johannesburg and think rail can function. It cannot. So unfortunately, there's a lot of legwork, but we're on a very low base, so we can re-engineer without having to live with this huge brownfield legacy. We can actually reimagine now.
Yes, I want to bring you because there's colleagues from Steinweg there, and they're very much in City.
Yes.
And they've got very much practical plans that we can do together with Ali just to bring it up to 375.
Yes.
So I think when we have the thought leaders and the different people together, combined behind the one vision, we can achieve remarkable results.
So I would commend the CUF as an infrastructure to bring everybody together around the table and say, well, what can everybody contribute to make the logistics system better?
Yes,
you.
I think there's one question there.
Morning, everybody. Junita, at the beginning, you did say that we only have 3 years to fix our system. Sitting here, I don't know whether to get worried or to immigrate.
No, I know you got Jaap. I saw Jaap's presentation to 230 and then 250. But let I put it, you're quite right.
So
we have 3 years.
3 years.
3 years. And let I tell you why, if I can.
Let me just maybe put my point across. It looks like we think fixing the rail system is going to be the panacea. The question that I do have to Jaap is how far are we? We're still trying to get the legislation to get everybody coordinated and to have a proper push to get the system right. If 3 years is all we have, how far are we from a legislation perspective to get our roles and all the stakeholders aligned to get us there? And if you look at what Sandra is saying says that although they own 3% of the road network, 70% of the freight in the country is pushed through the Central network. That means there's been a lot of investment from the tracking guys to replace Transnet. So what do we do when we fix a rail? Do you think those guys are going to just lie and not defend their territory, given that they've already invested? And I don't think they will just sit and allow the system to work because if it doesn't benefit them. And we understand what they do. They can go as far as vandalizing the network, the infrastructure, for them to remain relevant. So what is the plan around that? Thank you.
First, Nita, maybe you want to just give the 3 years. Then
Yeah, let me tell you why I say 3 years. With the landscape that we reading, is that window is closing to get quickly the reforms going because we work under an GNU and the GNU is getting more pressure. And the more the GNU gets more pressure, policies and frameworks will be more delayed. And the moment we fall in that trap, that the GNU is there and policies and framework are more delayed, we're not going to move the needle. So that's why our coming to the reform is for me to to get all the legal frameworks and all the things done in the next 3 years. Yes, then we drive implementation. But we mustn't put our foot from the pedal or take it off to say we can't pressurize for reform. We must be vocal, we must drive it, because this, it's like the mainframe and the Windows operating system. I don't know, you said you know that. The AS400 was really topical when the first Microsoft operating system came into play. Nobody was, but what the market didn't understand, there was a window. And Microsoft capitalized on that window. And that's what we need to say as business. We have 3 years in a window for the reform. And then thereafter, we must drive implementation, if that makes sense. But I want to come to you to one question. Jaap can also come in there. I think this is a very important graph. And I think this is the basics of a logistics network. And sometimes we don't talk about it. You need all the modalities. And what you need in all the modalities is load, speed, and distance. And the moment you distort this balance, we're becoming too expensive. Our transport cost is already 10% of the GDP. If we don't manufacture it, and we do light manufacturing, and we keep our hub status for sub-Saharan Africa, we must make sure all these modalities work. And then it's not rail above road or road above rail. And a journalist phoned me a week ago to say I must speak about why not road, why rail. I said, no, I'm not even going to answer that question because it's an integrated system. It's not road above rail, rail above road. It's an integrated system. So I hope, let's say, you're very cleverer than me, but I hope I answer you. And Claude was a comment, but I'm going to give to Jaap, and then Claude can come on.
Leave that slide there. What you're talking about is the Venn diagram of the road train, or the road mode actually, and the rail, which is that bottom black and a little bit of rail. What has happened is that's what it should look like. It doesn't look like that. In fact, most of the rail is now road. In 2010, we had 125,000 heavy motor vehicle carriers. We now have 750,000. Our GDP didn't grow 5 times, but our road load has grown 5 times. So, dare I say, use the coin of some foreign president, he wrote The Art of the Deal. We need to come to a transaction which is palatable for the industry that has displaced the rail capacity to prevent this. So I'm long on record, there's no concept of road versus rail. That picture proves it once more. You need to find a collaborative moment. Practically, that means if I'm the vehicle owner and I have to stand, if it takes my vehicle, I don't know, 2 days to go to Durban and back with a box, and I can drop it halfway and come back same day and go twice a week, then I get utilization out of my truck, but then I need somebody to get it in and out of the port. Why should a train have a red signal? Same argument. Why should a truck under loan stand in a queue? It doesn't make sense. So we must re-engineer. Currently, we have this nodal thing. It starts in Joburg, stops in Durban. Starts in Durban, stops in Joburg. That is, the world is much more nuanced than that. There's a lot of grey. There's 600 kilometers of grey in the middle. There's 700 kilometers of road, but there's rail, but there's only 540 of road. If we charge per ton kilometer, there's no deal for rail. So we have to reimagine the rail. We now know what the road market is already bearing from a road point of view. And that is the worst it can get from a cost point of view. 5 times the energy cost in watt-hours per ton kilometer for road compared to rail. 5 times. So we need to figure out that magic, and this is what this think tank process must reduce down to tangible realities. And then we need an open debate, radical transparency, Ray Dalio style, and put it on the table and sit around the table and talk to each other. SANRAL is currently, within DOT, just really carrying the rail maintenance budget by maintaining roads. They just moved the money somewhere else. The problem hasn't gone away. And the duty cycle of the road that the trucks now take, that's not what those roads were designed for. Just drive between Maritzburg and Durban, you'll see how they're building a whole new highway just for trucking. It is absurd. And we haven't solved the problem north where the trucks drive into the cars on the hill, you know, up to wherever. So yeah, Anita, sorry about that. I think we need a transaction that has to be negotiated. It's almost a It's almost a peacemaking transaction. And to transition the financial institutions, the drivers, the owner-drivers, the truck manufacturers, the steel industry, in the rail industry, and find that balance point, which makes sense for everybody. We must have that. It's called collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Yeah. What's really interesting about your point is we need to acknowledge in our models that South Africa is a different political economy. That the population, that the behaviors, that the vested interests, that the capacity of the states, the issue of security, right? That we have a society that is high conflict, high friction, high misery, high inequality, and therefore whatever strategy we do, whatever model we develop, acknowledges those realities. Do not treat them as externalities, but treat them as fundamental elements of the system, so that we don't treat technical as an externality, we treat it as an internality. We don't treat commercial as an externality, we treat it as an internality. But we're still treating security and social compact and unemployment as externalities. We call that external risk. And so we do and I see that I work a lot with the mining industry, which incidentally is only half the size of the logistics systems now. They do their plan. I tell them all the time, you do your plan and your strategy in spite of the countries and the continents where you operate. And it's only when you've done your technical stuff and your commercial and your financial, you say, oh, by the way, we're doing this in the DRC. And I say, yeah, but it's not a by the way. Doing that in the DRC commands the shape and your form of your strategy. Because the DRC is a non-functioning state where you are going to have to invest in being a quasi-state, and where the ability of the state to resolve conflict or to provide public goods that would otherwise allow you to realize your objectives is absent. So your operating cost is going to be higher and your degree of uncertainty is going to be higher. And the moment at which chaos, entropy is higher, when shit happens in the DRC, it is without nets. It happens, and it's a crisis. There is no in-between state. It's binary. Which leads me to your point about the 3-year horizon. So obviously, you have been thinking a lot about that, the political economy of reform in South Africa. But I would contend that you don't have 3 years.
Oh, Claude.
No,
we was close in 2 minutes.
No, but hang on. But that's reality. Just get your nose off your phone and thinking, we think we have 3 years because we have a GNU. Do you have a scenario of what happens when Cyril Ramaphosa is no longer president of the ANC? Do we have? I'm not saying catastrophe is going to happen when Cyril Ramaphosa is no longer president of the ANC, but do you have a scenario about what happens? Who is going to be president of the ANC? Because the record right now is that no president of South Africa has finished his second term. None whatsoever. So that's not the exception, that's the rule. We should therefore function on that rule. We should have an assumption that this president, like the previous one and the one before, is not going to finish his term. What's your... Oh, come on. Oh, come on. Okay, Juanita, all is well. Cyril is going to be president until the last day of his presidential mandate. Okay, happy 3 years.
So, colleagues, it's 11 o'clock, so I'm afraid the people online is going to drop off. So I just want to thank you out of my heart. It was a privilege to host you this morning. I think Jaap really done very well to give us the rail policy and what do we need to do. And Jaap, thank you. I know you showed us 6 slides, but we're definitely going to share the 50 slides. Thank you very much. Claude, before we went, when we were on comfort break, Natalie, which is director of, one of the directors in DSVC, asked me, how can you invite the speaker and then you said behave? So, but I said, yeah, we have a working relationship, and he helped me to also with Jacob's PhD. And I think then it was actually so nice to bring it back to reality with Brenna, to say that it's not a pie in the sky. We have a plan. We want to make sure it works. I think we have very much people to help us, like Ali, like Steinweg, like Rupert, that Brenna was speaking on when we had the comfort break, what we can do in Kaalfontein. And I think that's also what Jaap's really working hard to see, what can we do to bring trains into Kaalfontein, because we need that. So I really, out of my heart, want to say to you, thank you very much. Personally, I think it was a great program. We had great speakers. You shared your heart, your intellect. And Claude, last thing, we're not going to let you go back to France. We're going to help you to make sure we establish a thought leadership in South Africa constantly, that we don't get fears to drive us. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yep, you're the first one. Thank you very much.
So I'm getting a CD.
Yeah, no, a very a good red one.
I need a logistics system for this one.
Look, I hope you enjoyed this red one and you think about us.
I do. I love you guys. Oh, yes.
I'll put it in front.
Too much.
Red, I know. Red one, we were not sure, but we were not sure, but Andrea decided red one.